The NBA regular season is officially over and the play-in matchups have been set. And today we'll be ranking all 8 play-in teams, and trust me, we have some incredible matchups in this play-in round with the Lakers, 76ers, and Warriors all making the play-in and fighting for the 7th and 8th seeds in both conferences. Sitting at number 8, we have possibly the most directionless team in all of basketball in the Chicago Bulls. They have 3 guys that they thought were going to change their franchise for the better going forward in DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic, and they have a ton of money and draft assets tied up in these players, but they just have not produced in the way that everyone thought. And despite being the 9 seed ahead of the Hawks and playing the Hawks at home in the first leg of the play-in round, I do think the Hawks are the better team, and the Bulls are by far the worst team in the play-in and have just been mediocre for the past few seasons since Lonzo Ball went out with injury. At number 7, we have the Atlanta Hawks, who, despite having Trae Young back in the lineup, finished the season 36-46 and 28 games out of first place, who was the Boston Celtics. And this team has shown flashes of potential for the past few seasons, but have never really made it past anything but the play-in. And even if the Hawks make the 8th seed somehow, they have no chance against the Boston Celtics and really will have to have a miracle to even get to a full 7-game playoff series in the first round. This team has been incredibly mediocre and underwhelming, especially after trading a bunch of draft assets and picks for DeJounte Murray only a couple of years ago. And this team is going to have to either retool or reload or go into a complete rebuild if they want to have any chance of actually being a higher seed than a play-in team going forward. And I think that they do not really have a chance against any of the top teams in the Eastern Conference in a 7-game series, and they're going to have to really have a big offseason to prove that they're anything more than a play-in team going forward. At number 6, we have the Sacramento Kings, and this may seem very low for them, but finishing out this season, they just were not as good as people thought that they were going to be. At one point throughout the season, they were as high as the 4th seed, but finishing the season 4-6 in their last 10 games and just not being able to really close out the season as well as they had hoped really hurt their chances going into the playoffs. And at one point, I thought that they could really steal the 6th seed and avoid the play-in altogether. But this team down the stretch just wasn't as good as we thought they would be, and lost pole position even in the play-in tournament, and will have to win 2 games to even make it into a playoff series against the number 1 seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. And can this team beat the Thunder in a 7-game series? Hypothetically, yes, but I just don't see them competing with the other teams in the Western Conference play-in, as this team is just not as experienced as other teams, and we'll discuss that later on in the video. At number 5, we have the Los Angeles Lakers, who only last year went from a play-in team all the way to the Western Conference Finals before being swept by the Denver Nuggets. But I don't see them having the same kind of fortune and luck this year as they did last year. And while they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who you can never count out of any play-in game or playoff series, I don't think that this team has the same level of compete that they did last year. And outside of LeBron and AD, other players have not been stepping up in the same ways and have regressed back to the way that they have been performing in the regular season the past couple of years. And I don't see this team making the same type of elite run that they did last season. And last year was electric with Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, and others stepping up. But this year, outside of LeBron and AD, no one else has really stepped up in that same way when they've needed it. And that is what is holding them back going into the play-in and potentially playoffs. At number 4, we have the 10 seed in the Western Conference in the Golden State Warriors. And this may seem very high for them, especially above the Lakers, who are the 8th seed and only have to win 1 game to get into the playoffs. But the Warriors have been playing elite basketball throughout the past few weeks and are 8-2 in their last 10 games of the NBA season. And this team has championship material written all over them. And while they may not win an NBA Finals this year, out of the play-in teams, they have as good of a shot as any to make a deep run. Klay Thompson has been playing the best basketball that he's played in years, and throughout the past few games, he has been lighting it up from 3, shooting around 40 to 50% in most games in the last 10, and Draymond Green has looked exceptional as well. And despite shooting 0 points and not even taking a single shot against the Pelicans in a recent game on April 12th, he still had 12 rebounds and 11 assists and made a huge impact on that game in which the Warriors were able to beat the Pelicans. And I think that these two are the X factors in taking the Warriors to a playoffs berth by winning 2 play-in games, as well as potentially upsetting the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round as the 8th seed. At number 3, we have the New Orleans Pelicans, who are the 7th seed in the Western Conference and have a home playoff game to try to qualify for the 7th seed. And this is not a play-in team if you look at their actual roster. They have 3 guys in Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum, all averaging over 20 points a game. And all 3 of these guys can take over a game at any moment. And I think that this team is an actual upset potential in the Western Conference for a higher seed, especially with how good they've been at certain times throughout the season. And they've been as high as a 5 seed at times late in the season. So I will never count this team out. And I think that they will get the 7th seed in the Western Conference and be dangerous for whatever team that they draw in the first round, whether that be as an 8th seed against Oklahoma City or any other team in the Western Conference. At number 2, we have the Miami Heat, who qualified as a play-in team out east. And after last year, I will never count out this Miami Heat team, as they went from all the way in the play-in to upsetting the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks in the first round and going all the way to the NBA Finals. And they actually beat some of the hardest teams in the entire Eastern Conference, as well as beating the Boston Celtics in the Western Conference Finals. And they had a chance to actually sweep the Celtics before almost blowing that 3-game lead. But this is a team that has a lot of playoff experience, and this core has been in a lot of big games before. So I would not count them out of making a deep playoff run as they did last year. Last year, they made it all the way to the NBA Finals, and I don't foresee that happening this year with the Bucks and Celtics back in the East, and with both teams being pretty well healthy going into the playoffs. But you never know, and this team can be a real upset alert again in the Eastern Conference, and they've proven that they can upset any team that can hang with any team with this core. And finally, at number 1, we have the Philadelphia 76ers, who are by far the best team in the play-in tournament, and were actually tied for the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference with Orlando and Indiana, but due to tiebreakers, they finished as the 7th seed and have to play in the play-in tournament. But this team has a player in Joel Embiid that was an MVP candidate before a torn meniscus sidelined him for about 3 months, and because of this injury, they fell all the way from the 2 seed at one point this season, all the way down to number 7, and at one point were right around number 8 or number 9. But with Joel Embiid back and healthy, I don't see how they would miss the playoffs at all. And if they match up in the first round with either the Knicks as the 7th seed against a 2 seed Knicks, or as an 8th seed against the Boston Celtics, either one of these series could be an upset alert. And I think that the 2 play-in spots in the Eastern Conference will easily go to the 76ers and Miami Heat, just because they're the most well-rounded teams and they both don't deserve to be in the play-in at all. And the 76ers could be as high as 5th, as I mentioned before, and we're literally only 1 game back of 4th place in the Cleveland Cavaliers. So this is a team that, with Joel Embiid, is hard to stop, and despite their lack of playoff success, is a very quality team going into this playoffs and could easily make a deep playoff run this year. Anyways, let me know what you think. Let me know where you would rank these teams. God bless you all. I hope you have an amazing day, and make sure to subscribe to the channel as well so we can hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of April. God bless.